We have Azad Jammu and Kashmir's President, Sardar Masood Khan, with us. Thank you very much for your time, sir. Now, sir, India has stepped up its military operations in occupied Kashmir as Prime Minister Narendra Modi prepares to take the next step in usurping Kashmir's right to self-determination forever. So how do you see the international community and the United Nations in action over this?
We'll have to separate the international community and the United Nations. The United Nations response as an organization has been disappointing. The United Nations Security Council has held 3 meetings, informal meetings on Jammu and Kashmir, but they have not produced any results, and they haven't continued their deliberations on Kashmir since India became a non-permanent member of the Council. The Secretary General has been making statements from time to time, but these are anodyne, very well balanced, very well crafted statements, but they have no substance at all. And the Secretary General doesn't indicate his intent or the intent of the United Nations Security Council to take any action on Kashmir. So that's why I say that their role has been very disappointing. When we talk about the international community, we'll have to include, of course, the powerful nations, but also international civil society. And in international civil society, I include all actors of civil society, like parliaments, media houses, think tanks, citizens in general, for instance, our diaspora community. And the response was good in the beginning, in the immediate aftermath of August 2019. But it petered out. So the international community, if you include the European Parliament in it, the British Parliament, the French Parliament, even the US Congress, they were very robust in their response. And the media houses, the main networks, the print media or the electronic media, they extensively reported India's crimes against humanity in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the siege that its troops had laid there, and they called out India and they sided with the people of Jammu and Kashmir. So we're thankful to them, and that support, that sense survives even up to this day.
Right. Also tell us, has the BJP government succeeded in completely suppressing the freedom struggle of Kashmiris with its escalated extrajudicial killings and crushing curfew since 5th of August 2019?
The BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party, supported by Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, they have not succeeded in Kashmir at all. As a matter of fact, their suppression is strengthening the resolve of the people of Jammu and Kashmir to work harder for the realization of their right to self-determination. This approach by the BJP, which is driven by hatred, by religious zealotry, by extremism, this can't succeed, because when they came marauding into the territory on August the 5th, 2019, they said that they are going to usher in development and they're going to open new vistas for the progress in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This is counterintuitive. As a matter of fact, how can you invest in development by killing people, by gunning down young men and women and dishonoring women, and stealing their land, and bringing millions of people, millions of Hindus from all over India, and illegally settling them in the besieged territory. So these are crimes against humanity. These are war crimes. India is accountable, and India is deluded into believing, by India I mean the Bharatiya Janata Party, zealots and extremists and Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh cadres, they're mistaken in believing that they can win hearts and minds of the people of Jammu and Kashmir by repressing them, by conducting ethnic cleansing, a systematic ethnic cleansing in the occupied territory. this doesn't work, this will not work. The anger of the people of Jammu and Kashmir has increased manifold. They have vowed that they would get their freedom and liberty under all circumstances. Right now, India accuses Kashmiris of terrorism. This is also a false accusation. No substance to it, because they have deployed 900,000 troops who are the real terrorists there, because they're the ones who are killing people. And they say that they are opposing or fighting some 200 militants. We don't call them militants, but these are young boys who fled their homes because of the tyranny of the occupation forces. So I think this is the biggest asymmetry of forces in the history of warfare. If India wants to project it as warfare, there's no warfare. They have waged this war against besieged population, civilian population, non-combatants.
Right now, Mr. President, lastly, Prime Minister Modi's recent attempt to appease Kashmiri politicians loyal to New Delhi for ages backfired. Both Mehbooba Mufti and Umar Abdullah refused to accept the unilateral annexation. Do you believe this can trigger a bigger resistance to the BJP government's aspirations?
Well, these leaders who met Narendra Modi, they're all fake currency. They've been rejected by the people of Jammu and Kashmir. You know, generation after generation, these leaders have been selling Kashmir to India, to Delhi, previously to the Congress party, now to the BJP and to the successive governments. They are traitors of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Now they want to don a new mantle because they've been rejected by the BJP also. They want to assume this role of the saviors of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, but people of Jammu and Kashmir know them, that they have no credibility whatsoever. And but we should not underestimate the mischief that these leaders, Umar Abdullah or Mehbooba Mufti or Farooq Abdullah, that they can cause. Why? Because they are still lackeys and henchmen of the Indian establishment, the BJP RSS establishment, and they would play in their hands, because these fellows, when they were deprived of power and they were incarcerated, they are groping for a new role for them. And India also wants, I mean, Delhi also wants that these leaders who had some standing in the past as pro-Indian leaders, that they should endorse some of the actions that India has taken. For instance, demographic changes, for instance, delimitation of constituencies, for instance, India's operation against the Kashmiris, so that they can project this to the rest of the world. The Kashmiri leadership, quote-unquote Kashmiri leadership, has accepted India's decisions or India's actions. So I would say, coming from Mehbooba Mufti or any other leader, these pro-India leaders, these talks between India and Pakistan means nothing, because when Narendra Modi met these leaders from Jammu and Kashmir, I didn't see Sayyid Ali Gilani there, or Yasin Malik, or Shabir Shah, or Asiya Indrabi, who were the true representatives and true leaders of Jammu and Kashmir. So I would say that these fake leaders will not represent the aspirations of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, but they can still play a very negative role. And that's why the people of Jammu and Kashmir are vigilant, we are vigilant. Last point that I want to make in this context is that any talks from now on which take place without the participation of the people of Jammu and Kashmir would not produce any results whatsoever. Participation of the Jammu and Kashmir people people, their true representatives, is a must, is imperative in a bilateral process, and I would not call it a bilateral process. It has to be a trilateral process, or any multilateral diplomatic process, or any third-party mediation. Kashmiris must be there around the table, at the table, when their fate is being discussed.
Absolutely. Honourable President of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Sardar Masood Khan, thank you very much for talking to Indus News.